We do want to welcome anybody. I think now that we're on the right account, there might be some other people that joined good with their good there. I wanted to just to thank you for being a part of this. And Caleb, this is Caleb's month off. It's his sabbatical. So that's why Caleb's not around for this month. And Derek is at a grandfather's birthday that just he didn't know about until I found out today. So that's where he is. And it turns out that we're in a good spot because Logan is going to share with us today. But before he comes, I want to say out loud that everyone is welcome. Oh, even Tawana. No matter what, you're welcome. And we're glad you're here. And so, Logan, you instruct me as we go. And he's going to start this is going to be an ongoing thing. And this is the first of them. I'm really excited about what it's going to look like. So,
I'm going to get comfortable because I haven't stood in front of people for a long time, and I'm not used to it. And I'd rather be on everyone's level. So, let's go back to the time of 2016. I'm still in the evangelical culture.
I thought you were going to say cult.
Sure. We are recorded, right? I'm still in this culture. That's not, dang it, you've got me distracted now. Anyways, so I was informed about a podcast because I'm a podcast listener, kind of religiously, probably more my religion than actual church at this point. And it was a podcast called Harry Potter and the Sacred Text. And I thought, I wonder what that is. But I love Harry Potter, and I heard that they kind of made it a little religious in nature. I was like, that's interesting. And so I started listening, and how this podcast format kind of works, it still exists today, is they pick a one-word theme, and they read one chapter from the Harry Potter books in order, and they discuss that theme for about 20-30 minutes between two co-hosts. And then they do an ancient spiritual practice, whether it be Christian, Buddhist, Islam, Jewish. And then at the end they offer a blessing for a character. And it so moved me that I started this practice with my friends because I've learned that part of being accepting of people is understanding that the Bible comes with a lot of baggage and a lot of negative connotations. And maybe for some of you, definitely for me, that means I don't like to read it often. And there are many times when I read verses and I think that's BS at best. There's no way that's true, and there's no way anything in that is applicable to my life. Unless I think about it with my imagination. So what if it's not literal? But what if there's something, God or a higher power, or maybe for you it's something basic as shopping, whatever your God of choice is, that we can find in between the lines, not what's obvious, not what's glaring to us. So the basic premise of this is, how do we determine that we can trust a text? I stole this from the Harry Potter and the Sacred Text team. They have many projects. They've done multiple different books outside of Harry Potter. They've done Twilight, they've done Pirates of your thing, go for it. They've done Jane Eyre, which is complicated because there's a lot of racist connotations with Jane Eyre. But is there maybe something we can learn, we can glean from? So part of this is trusting the text. And that is, we practice the belief that the text is not just entertainment, but if taken seriously, it can give us generous rewards. Trusting the text doesn't mean we understand the text to be perfect, either in construction or moral teaching, but that it is worthy of our attention and contemplation. A guiding principle is that the more time we give to the text, the more blessings it has to give us. And so that's kind of what we're going to do today. I've just picked a text from a book that I love called Simon versus the Homo Sapien Agenda, written by a psychologist turned author named Becky Albertalli. This is a book that, because I'm queer, I found to be eye-opening in my journey. So the practice we're going to do today is what we call marginalia. It's taken from a Christian practice where you write in the margins of your Bible what the pastor is telling you. But we're not going to do that. I'm not going to tell you what to write. I'm going to read the text over you, and you're going to write what you hear, what you think. You can write about another text. You can write about what you need to talk in therapy that this text is guiding you into. You can write about a song you heard on the way here. There's no limitations, but that's your blessing. And that's what you get to write in the margins. So John's just going to play under me for a little bit once I find the page. I apologize. This is hard to do with holding a mic. And I'm just going to read this 2 times slowly, and then we're just going to give it a couple minutes with just some piano interlude, and you just take all the time. If you write a sentence, that's fine. If you write nothing, that's fine. And if you write a novel, that's fine too. Yeah, I think Andrew passed it out. If you don't, I have some extra copies up front. If you need one, just let us know. Everyone's good. As a side note, don't you think everyone should have to come out? Why is straight the default? Everyone should have to declare one way or another. And it should be this big, awkward thing, whether you're straight, gay, bi, or whatever. I'm just saying. Anyway, I don't know if any of this is helping. I guess I'm a little off my game. Kind of a weird day for me too. But just know, I'm sorry this is hitting you out of nowhere, and I'm thinking about you. Love, Jock. Jocks, first of all, your email helped a lot. I don't know, something about poop and Casanova and the phrase knocked up and reference to my dad. It's all such a train wreck. I think I do see the humor. I guess it's not necessarily a bad thing to have a little fetus sibling. I'm pretty curious to find out if it's a boy or a girl. Anyway, I feel a lot better now that I've gotten some sleep. And I think just talking it over with you makes everything better. Sorry you had a weird day too. Want to talk about it? It's definitely annoying that straight, and white for that matter, is the default. And that the only people who have to think about their identity are the ones who don't fit that mold. Straight people really should have to come out. And the more awkward it is, the better. Awkwardness should be a requirement. I guess this is sort of our version of the homosexual agenda. Love blue. P.S. By the way, guess what I'm eating at this very moment? And so whenever these practices end, we historically just offer up a blessing, and I'm going to offer up one for the character Blue, just for having to read in between the lines say that not only is he not straight, but he's also not white. And there are so many people in the world who have to carry these burdens and these secrets, and they don't feel safe to share or to be real or to be their authentic selves. But he has this pen pal who he doesn't know who he is at this point, and he has someone to write to. So I want to offer up a blessing for those people who are looking for someone to be their real selves with, so that they can find wholeness and authenticity, maybe even God or a higher power. Amen.
Thank you, Logan. Oddly enough, as things of the Spirit do sometimes, that really fits in with what I want to talk today about, which is friendship. So, let's be friends. You, me, each other. Let's be friends together. And as we've talked about, and as most of you know, the idea of friendship is this idea of knowing and being known. And of course, within that, built in with the idea, especially of being known, is the idea of vulnerability. And I don't want you to go farther than you want to in this. You get to be safe. It's okay to be safe. And I'd like to invite you to go one step into the water. So you don't have to go all the way in. Just let's wade in. Even as some of the things that Logan was talking about. It's this wading in. One step into the water. And see if it's okay. See if the water is okay. See if it's an all right place to be friends. When you were a kid, most of you had friends. Was there anybody that didn't have? I'm not going to ask if they didn't have friends.
I thought you were going to ask us to raise our hands if we didn't have friends.
I know it, but no, I wasn't.
Come on!
I was going to ask, dude, did any of you as a kid not have a best friend, but you had like several friends? Anybody not have a best friend?
Okay, sorry.
Thank you. I'm just interested.
I didn't
Yeah.
have best friend till college. Yeah, I had a best friend till college. I have friends, but not a
Not a best friend. All right, Danny, you do? No. In the 1980s, they did a study, and they asked adults, how many friends do you have? Like real friends. Confidants, that you would say. And the average answer was 3. They asked the same question recently, and the average answer was 2. Which doesn't seem like one friend would make that much difference, except that when you're talking 3 and 2, it's a huge difference. And so there are, as you know, different levels of friendships, right? Are those confidants, those 2 or 3, and there are many who don't even have 2, right? I, as a college professor for many years, I was always concerned about people that graduated, that weren't getting married, that weren't going to grad school. They were just going out into the work world. Because all of a sudden, you like all your friendships are gone. And it's as if you're all alone. Or, as has happened with some of you, you got married, and that was your only friend. And sometimes even in that friendship on your own. Jesus, one of the most remarkable things that Jesus did was inviting us into friendship. Now, it happened in the Old Testament. Abraham and Moses were both called friends of God. But when they were talking about friendship, with Moses it said, and he talked to God face to face, like a friend. You know, but that's sort of a low bar for friendship. Like that he was able to talk face to face, like that was it. And that was great, it was good. But Jesus invites us into a different kind of friendship. He invites us into an intimate kind of friendship, a confidant kind of friendship, a friendship full of vulnerability. And what Jesus has done is he has made himself vulnerable to us. So that we can make ourselves as vulnerable to him as we feel safe to. And some of you, rightly, don't feel safe to go into those waters with Jesus. And so what we want to do as a church is we want to be like Jesus in this friendship idea. We want to make ourselves available as real friends. So let's do it. I'd like to suggest 4 ways. This comes from Rick Warren, of the evangelicals. He's one that I would have more respect for than many of them. He has had his own really difficult journey, if you know it. Really difficult journey. And I feel like he has some good things, certainly for me to hear. And he talks about, what does it mean to be to have love for somebody? And he's talking about it in a friendship kind of way. And he says these 4 things. He says, well, if I find that kind of friend, I listen, I see them, and I allow them to see me. I learn from them, and I laugh with them. And he says, if you can do those 4 things, you got a good shot at it. Like, okay, that's wading into the water enough to develop something. And so I want to just sort of talk through those 4 things with us today. The first is listening. And just a couple practical things. One is, in a chess game, when you play a piece, all right, you've done your piece, and then when they play their piece, what are you thinking? Well, there are a couple things. One, you might be thinking, what are they trying to do? But the main thing, even in what are they trying to do, where are they headed with this, is how do I respond? Well, I think that many of us in our conversations, certainly for me this is true, especially if it's somebody I'm unsure of, I'm constantly thinking, how am I going to respond to what they just said? So they're talking to me, but I'm not thinking, what are they saying? I'm thinking, how do I respond to what they're saying? Now, this isn't true if you're a politician. If you're a politician, they say something and you say what you're going to say no matter what they ask.
Oh, God.
Isn't that the truth? I mean, we we heard a tape of a Republican apologist. And he was asked about something that one of their fearless leaders had said that was just absolutely not so. And he wouldn't answer the question, right? He would talk about anything else except to answer the question, because how could you possibly justify what he said? And it's that idea, even in friendships sometimes, where we have something we're going to say, like we're going to obfuscate, we're going to do whatever we need to say what we want to say, and not to engage in the actual response to what they're saying. So here would be a practical way to do this that would be extremely awkward. Here it is. Somebody says something to you, and then you look at them and think about what they said, and then think about how you're going to respond. All right, so they say, whatever, and I look at them.
Gosh.
And then I plan out what I'm going to say. And then I say it. All right. Now that would work in one way, but in another way, it would absolutely not work, right? You would look stupid. And it would be so awkward that the friendship is bound to go nowhere. Do any of you know somebody like that? Do you really?
I have a friend in Michigan,
What?
and sometimes she calls me. She's had a rough life. Bad things have happened to her. She's a wonderful person.
Actually, can you say this into this? Do you mind?
Oh, yeah, sure. So I have a friend that I met in college in Eastern Kentucky. He lives in Michigan now, and we hang out still. We make trips to see each other and stuff, and it's just simple stuff like let's get lunch and then go to the beach, and then I drive back to wherever I came from. But we stay in touch all the time, and she's had a lot of troubles in her life, and a lot of really nasty people have done some pretty terrible things to her, but she hasn't fallen into that. Anyway, so what I'm trying to say is sometimes she'll call me like at 3 in the morning, just crying. And it's hard to reason with someone who's going through all of those emotions. And I just try to offer her perspective, and sometimes she'll say something like, without being too graphic, why does this happen? Why, how is that even possible for a person to do that? Most people broken, they're not much of a person. And it doesn't really click. So, second or third time around, these are just nagging, just about driving her insane, and I'm talking to really horrible things. But what I have to do is I have to stop, and I have to think. And I have to think about what to say to her in a way that is not something that she'll just hear, but something that she will be unable to not hear. If that makes any sense. So I can't really give an opinion. I more have to almost prove some perspective. And so I know it's a little unusual, and when you talk about friends, we're pretty hardcore, but I guess she's really my only best friend. Has been for forever. But I guess that's all I have to say.
Thank you. The best friend idea. So there are these levels of friendships. So I've known Stephen and Tricia just over a year, and we become real friends, in a year.
Yeah.
And there are other people, Tawana, I have known over 47 years. And we are what you might call special friends. all of us have the different levels, and they're also, it's not always equal, right? Sometimes you are friends with someone who needs you in a different kind of way. And there are other friends that you might really need them. And so it's not always an equal thing. The only danger is if you become always the one who's needed, or always the one who needs. That's where you don't want to be. You need to have friends where it can go both ways. One answer to the idea of really listening to people is just a simple thing, which is to only have a thought of what you're going to answer. So don't work it out while they're talking. You might just have a thought of what it is, and you can think in whole ideas. We'll talk about this when we talk about prayer. But almost all of us think in whole ideas. So in this much time, you have several sentences, not laid out, but you have the whole idea in your head. You can try this out. So before I say these next two sentences, right, I don't know what the words are going to be, but I know the idea of what I'm going to say. And so that you can really listen in. Now, if it's a business kind of thing where you have to say exactly the right thing, okay, I get it. But with a real friend, make it a vulnerable step to not know what you're going to say back. And to let them really listen, to hear them. Second, the idea of seeing. We talked about this when we talked about the God who sees me. But I also want to talk about this. I want Tawana to tell a story. And so, Tawana, I'm going to unmute you.
Always a good thing to unmute your wife.
Okay, can you hear me now?
Got it.
I'll put that on speaker view.
Okay. Well, when I was 14, we lived way out in the country, and our nearest neighbors were about 2 miles away. My dad was often out of work, so we were sort of poor, and I did not at all fit in at school, so I was pretty easy to overlook. And when I was 14, then my Algebra 1 teacher in the little country school I attended actually really saw me. She saw potential. She saw my creativity. She saw that I was bored in class, even though I thought I acted like I wasn't because I was so attentive. She saw that I was afraid of not fitting in. She saw that there was poverty in my family. She saw my math ability. She figured out what my background exactly was and what I knew and what I didn't know and what I was probably able to figure out. And she guessed that I would really like math. Really like math. Even though at the time, math was my least favorite subject. One day when we were getting our homework back near the beginning of the year, there was a note at the end of mine and it asked if I would be interested in doing some math problems for fun. So yes, I was interested. So I said, next time I did homework, I put a note down at the bottom of mine saying yes. So the rest of that year, while other kids secretly passed notes to each other, hoping that the teacher would not notice, I was actually secretly passing notes back and forth with the teacher, with none of my classmates knowing anything about. So every time there was homework, I turned in my answers at the end, and every time she turned back homework, she wrote me a new problem and wrote some comments on my answers. And so we corresponded that way. The problems were challenging and they took hours to solve. And they were intriguing to me. And sometimes I felt like I'll never be able to get this one. This one's just impossible. Surely there's something I don't know that they haven't taught us yet that I would need to know to solve this. But always, eventually, I could figure them out. And I fell in love with math. So meanwhile, none of my classmates knew, so I didn't have to figure out the social consequences of, how weird that was that I was doing these particular math problems. They had no clue. And I still was my shy, insecure student in the math classroom. But inside, I knew that somebody in the room saw me, saw both the good and the bad, saw my giftedness and saw my challenges, and valued and loved me, and my life was forever changed.
Thanks, Anne. Twana wrote this. When you see someone, you see needs, you see hurts, you see potential, you see preferences, you see personality, you see uniqueness, you see hundreds of good things. I'd like you to take just a moment, and this is the waiting part. Somebody in the church, somebody that you've met here, you know here, and I want you to think about them. Like, what does it mean to see them? And so our goal, one of our goals, is to become godlike by seeing people. And remember we talked about like that difference between, yeah, they looked at me, but they didn't see me. It's that idea. When my dad was a little boy, he would go outside in front of his house, and he would march this, and he was hoping, as he would hum a tune, he was hoping that someone would come by, would drive by, and discover him as a great musician because of the rhythm he had, the way he looked. He was waiting for somebody to see him. And so I want to challenge you to see people, to become like God in this way of seeing people. Stephen and Tricia, I mean, you do this great.
Amen.
But this is going to be something that you get to do at your new church. As every person you meet is like trying to see them. And here's the idea with seeing. It's not just seeing, it's Jesus saying about Jesus, he saw him, this is about the young rich man, and he loved him. The third idea is to learn. I try, and I meet with people a lot, and I always want to learn something from them. And the reason is because I want to learn it, but the other reason is because I want to be friends. And when I learn from somebody, we develop a different kind of friendship. I have a best friend, and you all know Brian. Brian Hull is my best friend. And when we were just acquaintances for about 3 or 4 years in Asbury, until the day he came to my office and he said, I want you to tell me what you're doing in the worship arts program. How are you making that program work? Like, you've developed this whole thing of student leadership. How have you done it? And from that day, we became best friends. Because he wanted to learn from me. Isn't that weird? And of course, since then, I've learned a tremendous amount from him. You know, it does go both ways. But when you want to learn something from someone, it makes you vulnerable in a way that you can create friendship. The last idea is this laugh idea. Yesterday, Tawana was talking. Tawana and I were together, and she said, "You weren't even listening just now, were you?" David was a missionary in Mexico for a lot of his life. And one of the things he said about this, the culture of the people he was ministering to was, they are quick to laugh. And I don't know, something clicked in me. I was in my 20s when he told me that. And it turns out most of you are in your 20s. Or early 30s. Or recently out of the 20s. And I would love for you for that to become a goal of yours. To be somebody that laughs easily. And now you have to do this right. I was talking to the new provost, so my new boss, and he said something, and I misunderstood what he was saying. And I laughed, and he looked at me, and he's like, "What are you laughing at?" And I realized, oh, I must not have heard what he said, and I hadn't. It was not a laughing subject. So be careful. But having said that, be quick to laugh. When you laugh with someone, there is a friendship that you don't have without laughter. You know, our neighbors we want to be friends with our neighbors, and turns out my neighbors are always listening to loud music, whether or not they want to.
Oh my gosh. Bring it.
I'm here all weekend.
He's quite controlling it.
And let's be people that laugh easily. Let's be friends. We'll listen to each other. We'll see each other. We'll learn from each other. And let's laugh some. Thanks for listening. What I feel like I'm hearing from the Holy Spirit these days. We're going to have communion now. So if you want to go back and get things. Today especially, we're celebrating Stephen and Tricia and the time we've gotten to have with them. And here's the thing about friendships. Even when real friendships, even when people leave, they're not gone. They're just in another state. So go back and get your communion things. And we're all going to have communion together as friends. So normally you eat it and drink it however you want. Today, go ahead and get the weight on it and let's do it together. So, I love our Connect, the Beaumont Presbyterian Church. It's what's priceless to me. One of the things that they do really well is they eat together. And they do it a lot. And they do it really well. In fact, someone that often comes here is a lady named Lisa. I hope you've met her. And she's a chef. She's like a real cook. And so we're going to do some, I think she'll help us sometimes do some things together. But every week, Lisa?
Lisa, the dude.
Yes. And so this idea of eating together is one of the things that friends do. I rarely meet with anybody that's not over lunch or coffee. And usually lunch. Because there's something about eating together that makes you friends. And so every week we have communion together. And I want to just say this. this is a part of being friends, is doing this together. It's Jesus saying, you are no longer my servants. You are now my friends. And of course, there were cultural reasons that when they drank together, they drank wine in the same way that in most European cultures, it's wine. It's just part of what that culture is. But there's also something, I don't know, like I've had this dream since when I was at Asbury when I couldn't drink at all. I've had this dream of being with good friends late at night, just being a little tipsy. Like there's something kind of cool about that. Now, if you're somebody that struggles with alcohol, like this in alcoholism, I'm really sorry. And we won't go down that road with you in any way, in a bad way. Like we're not going to try to lead you into anything with that. But I love this idea of drinking together. You know, that's what friends do. And so, every week, we have something, the wine or grape juice, and we drink together. Has anybody else wondered what Jesus and his disciples' parties look like? And just to finish then, our time together, Michelle, do you have?
Yes, I do.
Do I have to, or is this?
Pardon?
Yes. Yes.
Oh, yeah. Hey, Christine, can you come here?
Yeah.
Okay.
Oh, yeah.
Huh? Yeah.
Wow, that's loud.
Okay, sorry, I got a lot of control. Imagine that.
Imagine that.
Well, this one is from all of us for, this one's for Hazel Grace, and this one's for Winnie. I only got one talking thing. So that's love for y'all. And this is for you guys. You'll understand when you open it why it's not for littler ones. And this is for the family. We had some people that couldn't be here today, but guys, like, I don't know, I'm hoping I'll start tearing up. I don't know how to I kept thinking of the verse about when you were hungry, when I was hungry, you fed me. When I was thirsty, I want to match this up correctly. When I was thirsty, you gave me a drink. When I was homeless, you gave me a home. And not only have you guys provided in that way for us, but I feel like you kind of even took it a little further and took away the stranger part of it. And you're like, come be part of our family. And I don't know how to explain how that radical love has changed everything for us. You guys are so called to be leaders in the church. And the talking things we got for the girls are actually I think they're little microphones, so they can talk into them. But I think a lot of that is just because you guys are always giving people their voice. So I wanted to get just like a little representation, and also your girls, you know? They have a voice too. And you guys, I just don't know how to tell you how loved we feel and how it's made all the difference. And we're so glad we don't count in the group of people that don't get to communicate with you. A lot of people, we're still in the process of signing this card, and I'm pretty sure the guy said that the gift card did run, so you should have money on it, but I don't know, it's kind of in a rush. So just so you know, if it doesn't have money on it, I'm really sorry about that. I probably should have said that afterward, huh? Instead of in the thing, but guys, like, thanks for loving us with the heart of Jesus. And we've already prayed for him, so we don't do that now.
But you can't, you can only pray once.
Okay.
We double up on it.
Yeah, you got it. Well,
Cancels it out.
Kristen, you want to say what yours?
Yeah,
From the
should they go
short
and
list.
just open it?
Yeah.
As-
well, they can't open Winnie and.
Right, no, just this one.
Oh, sorry. You're right.
Maybe that one is just for them.
Okay, but these are just small representations of how we feel.
But you'll have to tell them what.
Wait, but Kristen, say it into the mic.
Okay. I actually made these, but they are from all of us. They're made out of flowers that I took from the church here. So you can always have them with you. A part of the church.
All right, well, other people want to sign this, but I'll
Oh,
get it.
sorry, they're coasters for people that can't see.
Flowers from the church.
I love that so much.
Dad will want to sign this, but we love you. Mwah.
So, thank you for being a part of us and continuing to be a part.
Amen.
Anytime you want to zoom in, you're welcome to. You know,
Yeah,
and,
it takes so much pressure.
in a lot of church polities, once you're gone, you're gone. You're not allowed to have contact with your former church if you're the pastor. And we turn out not to be that way. You are always a part of us. So thank you. We love you. Thank you, everybody, for being here. We love all of you. Let's be friends. Let's be friends together. Amen.